Maybe let me ask you one more question before we kind of head out to the audience. And there's something really interesting that you said about the constructions of what it means to be a Kenyan. And again, in the context of what you have called stolen histories and stolen pasts that were stolen alongside the objects. And so maybe for us, one of the things that we discuss as the nest often is how do we move past the paralysis of such a great wrong? How do we begin to negotiate past it? Not to forget it, not to forgive it, because again, even forgiveness and the ideas thereof are problematic.
Right.
No one has gone there yet. Maybe I don't know, but what can we do with what we have to begin to construct and discuss amongst ourselves as artists, as academics, as publics? How do we construct what we want to be now or what we were meant to be before within a void?
Well, I'd say first that we should get away from this idea there was something we were meant to be. I think to take George's metaphor, we are always sources of, products of interruption. It's not that it wasn't happening before the whites got here. People kept interrupting one another, and through that is where societies were born, others were destroyed, others were changed. I think we need to acknowledge that that's a process, that's a human process, and to learn from it. I don't want the archive because I think somehow it's going to help me restore a past, and I don't think we should want the objects that that we're asking for because we think it's going to help us recreate, a gone past. That's gone. That's not coming back. But what it does is it helps us understand how that past gave birth to the present. It helps us understand where we sit now. And I think more importantly, it allows us to imagine different outcomes. So if, for example, we understood that the things we call tribes today are to a large extent fabrications, and they were colonial fabrications, For most of the people I interact with on a day-to-day basis, they tend to think of this as cultural constructions that were made thousands of years ago. There were Kikuyus walking the earth, in the time of the Romans, and things like that, which is rubbish, But this is what we've been told. This is why your president keeps talking about forefathers when he's actually talking about his dad, This is how we've been told to think. So what happens when we can think differently? Doesn't mean we will recreate that, but we will understand that we don't have to be the way we are now. We can organize differently because there's nothing that is set in stone. We were taught this, we can unlearn it. And I think for me that's a more important discussion that we should have. When you ask about how we deal with it, it's really to acknowledge that life is not something that is sort of defined for us. Our place in the world is not something that somebody can, was it Ham or something, so his dad was naked, so then we'll always be poor or we'll always be slaves, That's bullshit, So I want the archive back. I want the thing is back just so I can understand how I got here. But how I got here does not define where I am going, and it does not for me define, it doesn't mean that I've got to turn back and go to where I came from.